Tucker sat down with Putin. We haven't seen Putin in so long. I will say, at the very beginning of this, and we are not going to get into it because I do not want to plant the seeds in your head of conspiracy, but my husband, rightfully so, says, Putin did a very, very good job last night of announcing to the world leaders that you can trust me. Now, with that being said, let's move on to some other things.
My question was a little more specific. It was, of course, not a defense of Nazis, neo or otherwise. It was a practical question. You don't control the entire country. You don't control Kiev. You don't seem like you want to. So how do you eliminate a culture or an ideology?
Putin has been clearing his throat a lot through this interview. He is older. I suspect some form of disease, whether it be temporary or chronic. I don't know. But we'll have to, when we see his body language, kind of chalk up that constant clearing, throat swallowing, things of that nature to that disease, other than, some telltale sign of body language.
Or feelings or a view of history in a country that you don't control. What do you do about that?
А вы знаете, как вам не покажется странным, в ходе переговоров в Стамбуле...
So as he begins this talk, Putin, brain search, believe me look, shoulder shrug, kind of all going together. He's a little stiff. I wouldn't say he's completely relaxed in this interview. He does become very relaxed later.
You know, as strange as it may seem to you, during the negotiations in Istanbul, we did agree that we have it all in writing. Neo-Nazism would not be cultivated in Europe.
And then you see the furrow in the face come down and those eyebrows squish down. And then they release as whatever word comes out of his mouth at that point. As like, aha, one eyebrow first, and then the other one follows slowly. That's his quote-unquote trump card. We've already got all this information. I've got signed documents. That's exactly what that means. That body says, I've got backing to my words. Believe me, and then the tell of, I have backing.
Ukraine, including that it would be prohibited at the legislative level. Mr. Carson, we agreed on that. This, it turns out, can be done during the negotiation process. And there's nothing humiliating for Ukraine as a modern civilized state. Is any state allowed to promote Nazism? It is not, is it? That is it.
He leans back in the chair, very confident in his argument to Tucker.
Will there be talks, and why haven't there been talks about resolving the conflict in Ukraine? Peace talks.
Они были, они дошли до очень высокой стадии согласования позиций.
They have been. They reached a very high stage of
Pulls himself in, believe me look, shoulders up.
Coordination of positions in a complex process. But still, they were almost finalized. But after we withdrew our troops from Kiev, as I have already said...
And the body is stiff. And you can pretty much tell that because shoulders and neck are moving together and they're not separate on this whole question that there have been, or at least from the interpreter, about negotiations. And there could be a few reasons for this. One, for those of you who have been watching Putin for a very long time, and or me, you know that he's got arthritis, hip region, probably up and through the spine. So it's like, and this is pretty much a normal movement for him. Especially, you see it more when he walks. Another thing is, we found out, according to Colonel McGregor, I believe his name is, that the Russians put very high value on a leader who can keep its country together. Like, you could literally just carpet bomb everything, but as long as everyone follows you, as far as in the leadership, you're fine. So anything that could jeopardize his cabinet from not following him would increase stress.
The other side threw away all these agreements and obeyed the instructions of Western countries.
Now we're seeing a little bit of looseness, I should say. It's not really loose, but again, we've got to go with the arthritis. Neck is kind of independent. The shoulder line does follow it. He's giving you pretty much his truth, and there is some underlying stress there.
European countries and the United States to fight Russia to the bitter end. Moreover, the president of Ukraine has legislated a ban on negotiating with Russia. He signed a decree forbidding everyone to negotiate with Russia. But how are we going to negotiate if he forbade himself and everyone to do this? We know that he is putting forward some ideas about this settlement, but in order to agree on something, we need to have a dialogue. Is that not right?
Well, but you wouldn't be speaking to the Ukrainian president, you'd be speaking to the American president. When was the last time you spoke to Joe Biden?
I cannot remember when I talked to him. I do not remember. We can look it up.
You don't remember?
No. Why? Do I have
That's actually really good. You know, we go back and forth. What languages does Putin speak? I'm pretty sure he's very bilingual in very many languages. But Tucker obviously laughs at Putin saying this stuff. Putin automatically reacts. You see the smile on his face. He's like, oh, I made a joke. This is very good. You know, it's a little bit of camaraderie, which I think at this point starts to help him to relax in this interview.
to remember everything? I have my own things.
Because now the foot goes down, the body kind of drops into the chair. It's like, oh, and he's got a good smile on his face. Oh, yeah. Don't remember. Like, yeah, calling out his BS, but in a very forgiving manner with the laugh helps your camaraderie with the other side.
To do. We have domestic political affairs.
Well, he's funding the war that you're fighting, so I would think that would be memorable.
Well, yes, he funds, but
It also helps Tucker to be able to ask a more probing, like in your face, well, he is funding the war. Putin doesn't give him eye contact, agrees with him. You see the positive movement in the head, furrowed in, really just avoiding the whole topic. He won't look at Tucker. He's turtled himself in it. He's standing firm and, oh well.
I talked to him before the special military operation, of course.
And then instantly goes into, I talked to him before, so he can stand on some truth there, and you see the body movement flow with that.
And I said to him then, by the way, I will not go into details, I never do, but I said to him then, I believe that you are making a huge mistake of historic proportions by supporting everything that is happening there, in Ukraine, by pushing Russia away. I told him repeat.
And now you really see him loosen up as he gets into the story of what he remembers and retelling it. You also see some of that arthritis movement. It's always there. It's not like loosey-goosey. He's certainly not a yoga master.
By the way. I think that would be correct if I stop here.
What did he say?
Ask him, please. It is easier for you. You are a citizen of the United States. Go and ask him. It is not appropriate for me to comment on our conversation.
But you haven't spoken to him since before February of 2022.
No, we haven't spoken. Certain contacts are being maintained, though. Speaking of which,
So here we go. We're back into avoidance. No, we haven't spoken, but certain context. So now we see the tight-lippedness. We see the, I want to look at you, but I'm going to look above you. It's walking that fine line. I do not want to be a liar. I need to watch what I say. So you see a lot of squirreliness, the constant movement, the looking away, looking down, looking up, tightness in the face, tightness in the body, then loosiness in the body as it sits there and tells truth everywhere around where this conversation wants to go. Talking to Biden.
that is the only scenario where the world could be stable, sustainable, and predictable. Until then, while the head is split in two parts, it is an illness, a serious adverse condition. It is a period of severe disease that the world is going through now. But I think that, thanks to honest journalism, this work is akin to work of the doctors. This could somehow be remedied.
Well, let's just give one example, the US dollar, which has kind of united the world.
Oh my. So we're talking about the US dollar. Just give one example, the US dollar, deep breath in and out. And he's not moving. So when I sit there, and it's not really a subject change, but it elaborates on the subject as far as I'm going to direct the mind to an example, I would expect the body to sit there and go into that example. It has to redirect to, oh, I'm going to pinpoint on this example. Something moves, but we see nothing. No eyes, no head, no body, no legs, but a deep breath in.
In a lot of ways, maybe not to your advantage, but certainly to ours. Is that going away as the...
And then, of course, the clearing of the throat, which again, The man's been coughing the whole time through this interview and trying to clear his throat. So it's like, oh, maybe, probably not.
Reserve currency, the universally accepted currency. How have sanctions, do you think, changed the dollar's place in the world?
And we got touching of the head, we got scratching, deep breath in.
Вы знаете, это одна из грубейших
You know, to use the dollar as a tool of foreign policy.
But as he started that, he's very loose. You see the head bob and then point in multiple directions as the brain engages those spots.
Struggle is one of the biggest strategic mistakes made by the US political leadership.
Это основа основ могущества США.
The dollar is the cornerstone of the United States power.
I'm going to assume when he took his hand and held it like he did, up with fingers clawed into it, that is representing the dollar. It is not an open hand of openness. It is a claw that he holds on to. I hope you understand that he is holding on to. I'm going to go back and see how he ended that clawness.
By the US political leadership.
Это основа основ могущества США.
The dollar is the...
He clawed it and then loosened his grip on it and then was like it was handing it back to the U.S., which is, as far as he is concerned, Tucker represents the U.S. I've clawed it. I've got it. I am the predator. Loosen my hand, cradle it, still cupped, protected in his hand. Very interesting dynamic right there. Let's move on.
What comes next? And maybe you trade one colonial power for another, much less sentimental and forgiving colonial power. I mean, is the BRICS, for example, in danger of being completely dominated by the Chinese economy in a way that's not good for their sovereignty? Do you worry about that?
Yes, he worries about that. I'm going to have my head up, and we didn't see his movement too much from the angle of just looking at Tucker, but we did see that his face and body didn't move. I don't know about the facial expression, but it didn't move. We go back to Putin. He's got his face up, looking up, and then laughs it off. Brows furrowed in. That is a worry. You don't laugh off a legitimate, logical thought when you obviously can tell this man is not an idiot.
Well, we have heard those boogeyman stories before. It is a boogeyman story.
You got one eyebrow up on that, the other one down. It is a boogeyman story. And he's trying to shrug it off. Direct eye contact and the believe me look with a whole lot more stiffness than what we've seen with the US dollar. The boogeyman story is a legitimate boogeyman story. And again, this may be do not want to lose with his own cabinet, or he really is worried that China may pull some shenanigans.
We're neighbors with China. You cannot choose neighbors just as you cannot choose close relatives.
And the body instantly goes real loose about borders, sharing, can't choose them.
You just asked me if another leader comes and changes something. It is not about the leader. It is not about the personality of a particular person. I had a very good relationship with, say, Bush. I know that in the United States...
So right before it cuts, he goes to a visual and mentions Bush.
He was portrayed as some kind of a country boy who does not understand much. I assure you that this is not the case. I think he made a lot of mistakes.
He comes back, he's giving very good eye contact, got the believe me look, and he puts him in reference to the side of him.
With regard to Russia, too.
And then keeps throwing it out. I don't know what words these are when it comes to the side and then throwing something at Tucker.
I told you about 2008 and the decision in Bucharest to open the NATO's doors for Ukraine and so on. That happened during his presidency. He actually exercised pressure on the Europeans. But in general, on a personal human level, I had a very good relationship with him. He was no worse than any other American or Russian or European politician. I assure you, he understood what he was doing as well as others.
I'm going to assume the assure word is with that open hand because that's basically what that means. Calm down, assurance, offering with the hand to the side, splayed out, not the palm up like a backing away, but a tap down for the assurance.
I had such personal relations
And then a sweeping motion with the assurance. Basically, he liked Bush. And this is the body language we get with Bush.
with Trump as well.
But with Trump, it's the other hand, and he throws it to the side, doesn't even look. And go look at that again.
He was no worse than any other American or Russian or European politician. I assure you, he understood what he was doing as well as others. I had such personal relationship with Trump as well.
All right, so with him and others, the assurance, sweeping motion doesn't look at that either. And Trump is on the other side, thrown out, doesn't look at that one either. So the not looking at it is just him focusing on Tucker. I'm having two conversations about two different entities, literally. So you got Bush on one side. He's had them assurances swept out. He's got Trump on the other side, thrown over there. And that may be the mind putting it that way because Trump's time in office was very short and very contentious with any conversation he had with Putin. And the little bit he did have, obviously, at least according to Putin, went well.
It is not about the personality of the leader. It is about the elite's mindset.
And it's very interesting about the elite's mindset, different from Bush and Trump. We have no idea what the negative finger in the middle. We're going to assume that he's talking about the elite's mindset. So he has a negativity towards it, which he does not put on the side of Bush, nor on the side of Trump when he speaks on those. So it's not even in the same arena.
If the idea of domination at any cost, based also on forceful actions,
then there we can't see him, but it looks like his hands are stood up pretty much like pillars as he's holding something that would be the idea.
dominates the American society, nothing will change. It will only get worse. But if, in the end, one comes to the awareness that the world has been changing due to the objective circumstances, and that one should be able to adapt to them in time, using the advantages that the US still has today.
Oh, he talks a lot with his body. He's literally grabbing it, pointing to himself in that sense of it's the idea. This idea, as Elon likes to call mind virus for many different things. In Putin's mind, there's another mind thing going around, the wake up. This is what is held so precariously in his fingertips, the wake up. All right, I'm done. We played with Putin long enough. If you like it, please share and subscribe. Thanks for watching.
If you'd like to learn more about analysing body language, there is a video course available on Mandy's website for Gold subscribers.